last week, Thursday night, we hosted a very powerful and moving conversation with a member of our community, with Debbie Schwartz, who is a BRCA breast cancer survivor. She sadly lost two sisters to breast cancer. She shared her story dealing with losing her sister and her own story as well. I'm actually going to share, she's in the Facebook comments, the link to a YouTube video of last week's class. That's not it, that's the stream key. I'm going to share in a minute, I'll share the link on YouTube where you can watch last week's discussion that we had with Debbie. Very, very powerful. And I got some very good feedback and appreciative feedback from several people who appreciated seeing not just the regular Torah classes, but something that was very important to share with the community, something very relevant in the lives of especially many Ashkenazi Jews. So that's very, very prevalent in the Ashkenazi Jewish community. And our job is not just to be spiritually worrying for the needs of our community, but to be worrying and helping and caring for everyone in our community in every single way that we can. And that includes helping create awareness about important things that are, especially those that are very prevalent in our community. So my wife and I were discussing after last week, how do we make it more practical and provide not just a moving story, but to give the knowledge and the information that people could use to be empowered and informed, and to take last week's story and make it emotion, make it real. So we reached out to Tracy. Tracy is another very wonderful member of our community, someone who we've gotten to know over the years. And my wife was just telling Tracy before, she remembers when she was just starting her own nonprofit for this very purpose of helping create awareness in the community, and helping people be empowered to deal with their own, God forbid if they need to, their own story and their own journey. So we reached out to Tracy. We're glad we have not only Tracy Milgram, who will be sharing her story together with us and telling us some important things, but we also have Dr. Etkin Kramer. Dr. Kramer is the founder, one of the leaders of Yodea. Yodea is a very interesting organization, also very important. Yodea is the Hebrew for know, and also an organization dedicated to giving awareness and helping people, especially women, know what they may need to know. So we're really honored to have both of you on with us tonight. Looking forward to, number one, hearing Tracy, your story, and then even more importantly, perhaps Dr. Kramer will share some statistics and some information that will be very, very important. Hannah, do you want to say anything?
That Tracy and I were talking before, and I remember talking to Tracy you said it was 5 years ago, right?
Yes.
Just after you had gone through your surgery, okay. And you were telling me about
this, I give the floor to
about that you wanted to start this organization, and here we are 5 years later, and look what you've done, taken your difficult story and use it as an opportunity to help so many people. And that's incredible, really turning it around and becoming a leader for many women going through similar challenges. So tell us a little about yourself and tell us about your story.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm Tracy. I'm the founder of BRCA Strong, where we educate, inspire, advocate, and support Previvors, survivors, and thrivers to eliminate the feeling of isolation and help you feel whole again. And Previvors are people who took preventative action against breast and ovarian cancer. And my nonprofit started based on my own story, as when I was 18 years old, I found my first lump in the shower and underwent a lumpectomy, which was benign. 1 year later, I underwent another lumpectomy, which was benign, and then had surveillance every year. And at the age of 21, I had an ultrasound that was detected another mass, and my breast surgeon said, well, we have to do another lumpectomy. And I'm like, we have to look further into this. There has to be more to the story, finding out and digging through your family history, speaking to my grandmother or my grandfather about different kinds of cancers that were in our family. I was proposed to do genetic testing. at the age of 21 years old and found out that I was BRCA2 positive. And that was in 2004. The BRCA gene was discovered in 1994. So 10 years later, there really wasn't literature, guidance, or support on what to do or where to go. What do you do? You know, you now have this information that you carry this genetic mutation, which means I had up to an 87% chance for breast cancer and up to a 50% for ovarian cancer. You know, at 21 being faced with this, it was so overwhelming. It was, where do you go? What do you do? You know, there wasn't centers like there is now. There wasn't, you know, DAIA, there wasn't any of these nonprofits that really gave me support or guidance. So I looked around in different states, you know, filed and looked for different clinical trials to join, and found one clinical trial that really caught my attention, which was a new air expansion after having a mastectomy. Yet I was still years away from really having surgery because I wanted a family. So
Right.
here I am, 21 years old, saying to my mom, what do I do? Where do I go? You know, I want kids. I want to nurse these kids, and I'm going to nurse these kids. So fast forward, I rushed life a little bit, got married, had 2 children. And when my son turned 3, I said, you know, it's time to take action. I was tired of going for scans every 6 months. The scanxiety was so high, the stress, the pressure that I...
Is that your own word?
No, it's actually like a really big word that's used in our community now. Because, you know, when you think about it, when you have to go for a scan, what is it? It causes you anxiety.
Right.
A mammogram, knowing how painful a mammogram can be if you're not going to the right center, or, you know, just all that anticipation of what's going to be from this test.
Right.
I'm like, so here we are at 32 years old. I say to my ex-husband, you know, I'm ready to move forward in life and take preventative action. So I decided at 32 years old to go ahead and pursue, you know, a prophylactic hysterectomy and prophylactic bilateral mastectomy. But before I go into my procedures, you know, I want to touch base on our history and really what genetic testing means. And being Ashkenazi Jewish descent, 1 in 40 have a chance of having this mutation. You know, that again puts my risk so much higher. You know, my youngest family member was 40 when she had breast cancer and never made it.
Wow.
Tell us your family, before we even talk about your story. So who in your family had breast cancer?
So my mom's mom and her 3 sisters. And then my mom's father had lung cancer and colon cancer. Lung cancer, and then his brothers had colon. So cancer was all over the family. And on my dad's side, my grandmother had ovarian cancer. Mm-hmm. So my risks were so high at this point that I said, like, I want kids and I want to be around for my children. And my, you know, being Ashkenazi Jewish descent again puts me at such a higher risk.
Right.
Yeah. Well, so you knew that you had to get yourself.
I what?
I just want to lower the volume. So at what point did you decide to go get tested?
So because when I was 21, they found another lump and they wanted to do another lumpectomy, I said there has to be options. And the breast surgeon referred me to get genetic testing. Now, in 2004, I'm not sure, maybe Dr. Kramer can correct me, if genetic counselors were really available. I was given my result in Broward Health by a nurse practitioner. My breast surgeon who ordered the testing wasn't around, didn't let me know that, oh, this involves pancreatic cancer, melanoma. This includes not just breast and ovarian cancer, that there's so many other cancers that go along with just saying you're BRCA positive. Your screenings change, you know, when do you get screened? How often do you get screened? And everybody's different, but not having that guidance, I kind of had to take the path myself and guide myself through this journey, which has led me to say my journey is my passion. Like, I was led on this journey for a reason, to make sure that I continue to educate and women know to not just go to somebody who doesn't have experience with genetic testing. Yes, family practitioners, OBGYNs that aren't certified, and all these doctors are ordering it, but it's more than just saying, here, you're BRCA positive. There's so much more to it.
So you're recommending if somebody wants to, you know, or needs to go through the testing, to go to somebody that's a specialist in genetic testing and in this specifically.
Or has facilities. Yeah, or has a facility, you know, like at Dr. Kramer's facility, forget Yodea, at her facility, there's a process that you go through. You're not just, here's your genetic testing, here's your results, deal with it.
Right. So you had nobody, so you didn't, nobody gave you the next step. It was just, here's your results, here's this bomb in your lap, and that's it. Go figure.
The only thing that I was offered was tamoxifen, because in 2004, they were giving tamoxifen to women to prevent cancer. But again, yet I wanted children, so I wasn't doing that. There was no way I was going to take a medication. My grandmother had estrogen positive breast cancer. Her sisters, like what, I wasn't going to put that in my body knowing I still wanted to nurse my kids and have that.
Right. It's incredible at the age of 21, you had the foresight to do the testing even, because at that age, like, you know, you kind of think you're invincible and like nothing is ever gonna, you know what I mean? And you're just going to be young and strong forever. So just to have the strength to say, wait, I need to look for something more is, I think, is very unusual.
And I'm in my family, I have 2 second cousins that are both, one's BRCA1, BRCA, and the other one's BRCA2. Nobody else in my family has done the testing except for my mom's brother, and he's negative because he has daughters. So he wanted to make sure he didn't give it to his children.
What about your mom?
My mom will not do genetic testing. My mom.
Why not? She's watching us.
My mom's on the call. My mom is facing some other health issues and has another type of cancer and is not ready to face what's going on or how to be involved. And at this point in her life, I think, you know, she's older, so we just have to do surveillance, and I support her. And no matter what, she's been super supportive of me, obviously, since you know, this has gone through my journey. She's never turned her back on me, and it's been a mission and many times, and I respect that as long as she does her screenings.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Okay, so you had your kids, beautiful kids. Thank God you had many years of nachas from them. And then something specific made you decide to go have these surgeries, or just it's been in the back of your mind for so many years, it was just waiting to come out?
You know, first it'd been in the back of my mind for many years. But again, you know, watching my grandmother go through breast cancer and have radiation, and my family suffer from a disease that if I could catch it before it got me, knowing that I have 2 kids and having a community of helping survivors and watching some of these women that have amazing strength and have empowered me, I wanted to be able to just live and take that fear away. Knowing, yes, there's a very small percentage once you have these procedures done that you still can get cancer, but you know, taking that out of my body was so much easier for me to decide. I felt like it was 100 pounds of fat just living in my body, of stress, of like, is this gonna be a lump? You know, like, what am I gonna find? Yeah, like, what am I gonna find? You know, where's it gonna be? What's gonna happen?
So instead of like waiting for this time bomb, it made you feel more relieved to get rid of it and do your part as much as, you know, as much as it's humanly possible to prevent it.
Okay, so you did the surgery. Do you want to explain what that is? Explain to the rest of us uneducated.
Sure. So the first procedure that I had was a hysterectomy, robotic, where they went in and removed my uterus, my ovaries, and my fallopian tubes at the age of 32. And I faced surgical menopause, which was challenging emotionally, physically, you know, balancing 2 kids, going through hormonal changes. You know, I went right into menopause. There was no, let's wait a couple of weeks. I literally hit rock bottom. You know, stress level and anxiety was high, hot flashes, but learning how to balance that and fighting it is worth the odds of getting it, because ovarian cancer to me is caught so much later in life. There's no screening, there's no surveillance that's accurate. You know, with my grandmother having ovarian cancer, yes, she had it later in life, but I've met and have been friends with so many women who had ovarian cancer. And I just said, you know what, it's worth the stress and worth the anxiety and the balance. There's still days, you know, it's hard. I've developed osteoporosis from no hormones at such a young age. So now I have to be careful with my bones and being fragile and, you know, making sure that I give myself good bone health. But overall, I feel that it was worth it and I have no regrets.
Thank God.
Did you talk to your doctor about estrogen?
So we've spoken about it a little bit. I have to revisit it. So,
Sorry, I mean, I'm jumping in with questions.
That's okay. That's okay. It's
Yeah,
a conversation. It's a conversation.
Exactly.
It's not formal. So, okay, so you did the surgery. How did you decide to start your nonprofit?
So after I had, 4 months before I had surgery, I started BRCA Strong on Facebook, just a small group of women.
Wow.
Even
As a
before,
hashtag.
huh?
As a hashtag.
Yes. And I started it just to say, you know, like, here's a safe zone for women. There has to be other women out there like me. So I started, met a couple women, and it grew over time. And once I had my mastectomy 6 months after my hysterectomy, it really changed because I was involved in a clinical trial and brought a product to market and educating women on a new product of a new expansion system and just making sure that women knew their options. Because one problem we do see is after having a prophylactic mastectomy or unilateral or a lumpectomy, you're not really given your options for reconstruction, which is a really big problem in our community. If you go see one doctor and they don't offer the other tram flaps and just do implants, you're just given your basic information. And women need to know that there's options out there. And that's one reason for BRCA Strong is knowing your options. If you want to go flat, if you don't want reconstruction, if you want to use your own tissues. You know, unfortunately, there's no gold standard, I don't think, for here's your options and this is what you have, and look into them. And you should be given that opportunity. And I don't think we're given a fair enough opportunity with this information. Like, yes, you're faced with either, you know, being known that you carry a gene mutation or you have breast cancer, but you still need to feel like a woman and feel whole again. So all those options should be given to you up front.
Yes. I had a friend that told me that that part was more traumatic than the whole, you know, the whole reconstruction part, and just feeling normal. It was harder than the whole original, you know, surviving the cancer.
And, you know, that's what we focused on at BRCA Strong is I felt that going through this process, there was no, how do you feel whole again? What makes you feel the same as you did before? You know, going through a mastectomy or a hysterectomy is at loss for a woman's body, right? We're born with body parts. We have these, we lose them, we go through hard times, but what do you do? So like that's where BRCA Strong falls into play is we fund women first, post-mastectomy garments, lymphedema sleeves,
Wow.
and mastectomy pillows. So for those women who are going through mastectomies and need garments, we're here to help you and support you. That's what we fund. And lymphedema sleeves, I feel like there's a lack of education on the whole bra perspective of a woman after going through reconstruction. There is options out there and we need to know that. And we do transformational photo shoots, medical panels, yoga, get-togethers, just to know that you're not alone. Because through this process, it's overwhelming. It can be a lot, especially if you're not guided correctly.
Right.
You know, different centers have different procedures. You know, working with Mount Sinai, Sylvester Baptist, you know, they're trying to create more of like centers where I could say in New York, they have the BRCA Center. You go in, you see, I'm not joking, a plastic surgeon, a breast surgeon, an oncologist, a geneticist, and a genetic counselor all in one day if you need to, because they're all available at your fingertips in the same building, where here you're going from this doctor to this doctor to this doctor. And if you're not in the right healthcare system, you have to bring all those notes.
Right.
Wow.
So knowledge is power about knowing your options.
Absolutely.
You said a lot of things that your organization does. There's an educational component. There is a social connection where people have a support system. There's the funding and the providing of the pillows and the clothing, et cetera. What would you say is a primary focus of what BRCA Strong is doing?
Is to help women feel whole again after their journeys.
On an emotional level, socially, emotionally.
Whatever that
Socially and emotionally, and we give them support. I mean, we just did a huge photo shoot in Coconut Creek in our local community, you know, getting into our communities and really touching these women, you know, as much as we can to help you make a difference, you know, just by coming out and walking through the trails in the woods, you know, in Coconut Creek, these women had such smiles on their faces, like jumping for joy. Like it meant the world to them. And those little things that all of us can take for granted are just really one little touch that you can do, or an affirmation card, or just sending, hey, how are you? Thinking of you, you know, not always physically sending them something, but just a message, you know, just because you think they're strong women, they still need support. Absolutely. And even men, you know, BRCA isn't just about women. Men are at risk too. And, you know, maybe Dr. Kramer will touch on that. And I think it's super important, especially, you know, in our community, again, to focus on the other things that we have in life.
Right.
So that's very, very beautiful. That's very, very beautiful. How many women would you say are connected to you that have been in the organization, that have gone through this, that you've helped, that have been connected to each other?
How many have I personally helped, do you think, in the last 5 years?
Well, however, the organization, if that's you personally.
So our national organization, go ahead, Dr. Kramer.
Organization, or this is your own organization?
So it's mine, but it's on a national, it's in all the states. We're all over.
Oh, wow.
That's beautiful. I didn't
realize that. So you started.
We have a.
Explain. I didn't understand that.
So basically, when we educate, we don't just educate in Florida, we educate all over the world. So we have physicians 2 nights a week. We have educational calls with different physicians all over the world, because women all over the world face this. I have a huge following in Israel with a couple groups over there, in South Africa and Australia. We have physicians from New York, California, Texas, educating, because when you narrow it down just to your small community, yes, you can help a lot of people, but there's so many women out there that really need this support. I've gone to New York and have events up there.
Wow, that's incredible.
I've had several events in New York and Florida. Florida and New York are my biggest followings right now. Obviously, we're just here because of the situation, but hopefully, you know, in the next couple of years, we'll continue to grow and be able to offer support everywhere.
So you have big dreams, I'm guessing.
I do. I do.
If you build something national,
in 5 years, that's incredible.
Lots of respect to you. Lots of respect. Wow. Yeah. Wow. Okay. That's beautiful. Anything you want to share with us? Any thoughts? Should we start with Dr. Kramer? You interject if anything comes to mind?
You know, one thing that I just want to say is knowledge is power. Make sure that you look into genetic testing. Make sure you know your options, your family history. It's just not, again, a test that everybody qualifies for or wants to do. You know your options and know your family history, and make sure you seek the right resources. And if there's anything that we can do at BRCA Strong, you can always feel free to reach out to me through Rabbi Denberg or Hannah, or, you know, reach out to me through Instagram or Facebook, and I'd love to help you.
I'll ask you one more question, just thinking as you're saying that. I think it's an important question. You mentioned before the scan anxiety. So I'm sure the scan
anxiety.
I like that word, scan anxiety. Didn't like a corona anxiety also.
Yes, there should be corona anxiety.
Corona anxiety. But I probably, the majority of people watching that have not ever taken a genetic test is because of that anxiety, right? So what would you say, how did you get through the anxiety, and what's any thoughts on overcoming the fear of the unknown and pretending like, I don't want to deal with it, I don't want to know about it?
So some people are better off with the unknown of just saying, I don't want to know about it. For the people that want to know about it and get educated on it, again, don't just jump into the test. Make sure you understand what it means, either if you're going to go under a strict surveillance or whether you're going to take preventative surgical action. To me, the more information you have, the better off you are, and know what's at risk. Take just a my risk assessment you can take and know your risks of what you're up against. Mm-hmm. To me, is the more you know, the better off you are. But some people just don't accept that. For me, I've learned to say that knowledge is power, and the more information that I have, the more I can help myself and help the next generation. Like what's to come for both my children that are a 50% chance, both of them are at a 50% chance risk of carrying this gene. So it's like, make sure you constantly stay educated and stay up to date on clinical trials, on new medications that are coming out, and just all your research, and have it together. And like I said, like Yodea, BRCA Strong, we're resources where you can go to have this information. Right. So you either have to say, yes, you're ready for this test, or mentally you're not. And many people may not be ready to handle this, but knowing your risk as personally as an Ashkenazi Jewish descent woman, 1 in 40, I'm getting tested.
Yeah. Okay. Stay with her. I'm sure more thoughts are going to come to my mind because this is, for me, honestly, it's a little bit of a new topic, but
Ask away. It's okay. Whatever you guys have.
People are afraid, I'm sure. So we're going to deal with that. And knowledge is power. And when you know what you're dealing with, it's a lot easier to, at least for me, it is to deal with the less unknown. You're more in control and more in the facts. So Dr. Kramer, who I'm going to ask you first to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Liz Etkin Kramer. I'm a gynecologist. I've been practice on Miami Beach now for over 25 years. And on Miami Beach, I've seen a lot of, I have a very large Ashkenazi Jewish population. It's Miami Beach. And I have seen women being diagnosed with BRCA related cancers that could have otherwise been prevented if we knew ahead of time. Mm-hmm. And it's absolutely heartbreaking. So as the data has shown over the years, and there's nothing new about this data, the relationship between BRCA and Ashkenazi Jews has been known for over 20 years. Mm-hmm. But in about 10 years ago, the data started to show that if I looked at a patient with a family history of cancer, and I looked at another patient without a family history of cancer, the studies have shown I'm going to find even more BRCA mutation carriers in those without a family history. So most, that 1 in 40, most don't even have a family history.
Wow.
So it's huge. The ones that have a family history, you know that you've got, but it's there. And so we need to educate, and that's what Yodea we started to know, to educate and get people tested easily, inexpensively, and help them get tested. Because with the information is what it tells you what you can do. It explains things to you. So we started it about, as I said, a handful of years ago. And I would go to different meetings and I'd have a conversation with the researchers and I say, I'm not getting this. Why are not all Ashkenazi Jews being tested? And initially it was, well, we don't know about the rollout. How do we do it? And all those things. And we finally said, this is ridiculous. I don't want to see another woman being diagnosed with a cancer that could be prevented, given the opportunity. So we started with this. And what we did is we reached out to the labs and we were able to get medical grade labs to give us discounted tests. We don't make any money off the test. The lab fee is the lab fee, and the lab fee includes post testing genetic counseling. So it's a medical grade test, and we facilitate it. We educate and we get people tested. And we've tested a handful of thousands of men and women in the community since we started. And we've been quite effective and quite successful, but 90% of those men and women who carry genetic mutations on the BRCA gene haven't been identified, 90. Wow. So we have a lot of work to do. And my idea is you educate, and if you can get people to get tested, however they choose to get tested. Some people get tested with a physician. Some people go to a genetic counselor. Some people choose it through Yodea. I do it in my office. As long as, however they choose to get tested, with these results, I have an opportunity to prevent cancer. Wow. So
is it just a simple blood test? Is it a
blood test, or you can do it through a saliva test?
Oh, really?
Medical grade, you can do it through a saliva test. It's all on the website. It's very, very, very straightforward. And we do events. Up until COVID, we were doing in-person events. We did events through Federation. We had a table at the women's event with 800 people. And to me, it's like Tay-Sachs from the 1970s and the 1980s. We're giving people information, and we can hopefully eradicate this in the future. We're not there yet. It's not like CRISPR, like they're doing CRISPR now, which cuts out the abnormal genes in men and women who carry sickle cell disease. We don't have that luxury yet. It's not being used in BRCA patients.
Mhm.
There will be better treatments than what we have, but this is what we have now, and they still work to help prevent cancer. BRCA is not fun, but cancer is worse. That's the way that's just the way as a medical professional, that's just the way I look at it.
Wow.
And we've had at our events, we have women and men who talk about their journeys, like Tracy, who talk about what their experience has been. And to me, it's an amazing brotherhood and sisterhood of, in particular, Jewish men and women who are so comfortable sharing their journeys and sharing their experiences because they recognize the impact that they have. Mm-hmm. To me, it's totally impactful, that information. And as Tracy does talk to people, if I have a patient that I just diagnosed in my office, they don't have cancer. I'm in my prevention world. I don't want to be treating cancer. I'm trying not to. In my prevention world, I'll call up one of my Udea girls, or I could call up Tracy and I could say, hey, can you talk to this person? Tell them about what you experienced.
Well, so much more than a doctor, really. You're connecting them with the whole.
It has to be, because I've seen the other side of it. I don't want to be on the other side of it. I don't. So this to me is a statistic that's really frightening to me. 40% of ovarian cancer. So ovarian cancer, regardless of ethnicity, is a very challenging disease. It's usually diagnosed, as Tracy said, at a late stage. We don't have early detection for it. We can't pick it up early. We can put somebody on birth control pills to prevent ovarian cancer, and it works very well. But women and the ovarian cancer that is diagnosed in BRCA carriers can be diagnosed in their 30s to 40s. I mean, young women, and it's horrible. 40% of Ashkenazi Jewish women with ovarian cancer, 40, is BRCA related.
Wow.
Wow.
Wow. So if I know ahead of time, I can prevent 40% of ovarian cancers.
Wow.
By doing hysterectomy?
No,
well, we're looking at, right now it's removing tubes and ovaries. And I do believe, Tracy, in if somebody hasn't had cancer, give them estrogen. It'll help your bones, it'll help your heart, and it'll help you not hate me. The surgical menopause is so much easier that way. But yes, removing tubes and ovaries, although they are looking at doing studies, just because a lot of the ovarian cancers are from the fallopian tubes. So they're doing studies removing fallopian tubes, leaving the ovaries, keep letting them see if they have the hormones a little bit longer, and then later on removing the ovaries.
Uh-huh.
So, and we have screening for breasts. And in BRCA2 carriers, we can put them on medicines to prevent breast cancer, which is pretty cool. I have some BRCA2 carriers who have chosen not to do prophylactic surgery, and I get it. Most of my girls end up choosing prophylactic, removing the tubes and ovaries.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's across the board. Most do, not all, but most do, because ovarian cancer is just a challenge. And if I can save them that journey, if I can save them that burden, I'm doing a good job.
Right.
Wow. You sleep a little better at night knowing that you're doing your part to prevent this.
I actually tell them that. I said, it's all about me. I just need to know that. I need to know this. I need to know you're not in this problem.
Meet you.
Yeah. It's all about me.
That's great.
Wow. Okay.
And there are the interesting thing about it is that there are programs for men, because remember, it comes from either the father or the mother. It's rare to have a new mutation. So if you have a mom that's negative and a dad that's negative, it's extraordinarily rare for the child to have a new mutation. So you know it's got to come from somewhere. That's not true for every genetic mutation like this. So there are programs where if a man carries a BRCA a BRCA mutation, they're at risk of male breast cancer and prostate cancer, and you can do different screening on them now. Wow. Which is really great. Even pancreatic cancer.
There's a really big misconception that it does not affect men, correct, that it only affects children. Well, that's what until this moment, that's what I.
If you're paying attention to last week's story, Debbie inherited the BRCA gene from her father, not from her mother.
Right. So I knew that they can pass it to their children, but I didn't think that men themselves can be impacted by the BRCA.
So my question on this, so if a man found out that he was BRCA positive, there's nothing he could do really, right?
Look at Matthew Knowles. Look at Matthew.
A slightly increased risk of male breast cancer. By far more of the cancer. Absolutely. Men can go for clinical breast exams because they have a slightly increased risk of male breast cancer. They can go for very strict prostate cancer screening. And interestingly, if there's a family history of pancreatic cancer, if it's a man or a woman, and they carry a BRCA mutation, it's now recommended to go for pancreatic cancer screening, because 75, I mean, we always were afraid of pancreatic cancer. I was afraid of pancreatic cancer, like ovarian cancer. Right. 75% of pancreatic cancers can be picked up at an earlier surgical treatable stage with screening. But you just have to have the knowledge so that you can do these things. If you don't have the knowledge, we're not advocating to do all these screenings to keep people alive. I don't want to get blindsided.
Right.
So I don't know statistics. I've never heard of a man that had breast cancer. Prostate cancer, definitely.
But look at Matthew Knowles. He was just diagnosed with breast cancer. Prime example, right? Beyonce's dad diagnosed with breast cancer. Well, he's like huge in the right? So basically he was diagnosed with breast cancer, went through, had a procedure, come to find out he was BRCA positive. He said if he knew that from the beginning, he would have had a mastectomy. Yes, men can get breast cancer too. Right. But it's interesting because they didn't find out until after.
What's the statistic of men getting breast cancer?
Low, probably less than 1%.
Prostate cancer is much more, I'm sure.
Correct. So men, I could share slides, but I think we're doing fine. It's up to you if you want me to show. 20 to 30. Sorry, you want me to show them?
No.
I think people relate more to a human voice and a human touch.
Got it. Cool. 20 to 30%. In males who carry BRCA mutations, 20 to 30% lifetime risk of an aggressive prostate cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So you follow them closer.
Right. So you were saying that, for an Ashkenazi woman, it's 1 in 40. What's
man too?
Oh, okay. So an Ashkenazi person, 1 in 40. But what's the BRCA, what's that statistics in the general population?
That's a great question. It is 4 to 10 times less likely in the general population. So when a woman who's not of Ashkenazi Jewish descent, or not of any Jewish descent, because there are other genes in non-Ashkenazi Jewish populations, the chance of carrying a BRCA mutation is anywhere from 1 in 160 to 1 in 300, 400, around there or so.
So it's hugely significantly.
Hugely.
Yeah.
Hugely.
And
that's
anti-Semitic.
Definitely anti-Semitic.
And I know, right?
So you're allowed to say that we have a higher rate. If we something else,
right.
People usually gotta say that, but yes.
So in the United States, it's now guideline. It's now guideline to test Ashkenazi Jews if there's one of 4 Ashkenazi Jewish grandparents. It's kind of creepy to use that kind of statistics, but if they have one of 4, if they're 25% Ashkenazi Jewish, it's recommended to have the testing. Insurances are not covering it yet.
I was about to ask, well, literally the question on my tongue. Yes.
Well,
They're not. We're working on it. We're working on it. They will cover it if you have a family history, but they will, as of yet, I haven't had insurances covering it. So that's why I kind of begged and pleaded the labs to say, what can you do? Can you give me a hand here?
I have 2 questions. Number 1, what does it cost to get a BRCA genetic test, approximately?
It's $149, the lab charges. And that actually includes BRCA, it's medical grade. We're not talking Ancestry or 23andMe.
Yeah.
So it's medical grade. Included in the lab fee is the post-test counseling, meaning they'll call you and go through what it means with you.
But Tracy didn't get when she found out, you're saying?
Yeah.
So actually, the company that Dr. Kramer uses now, I actually use. So I was tested again back in 2004. So over the years, genetic testing hasn't changed, but companies have changed. And when this company Color came out, I was like, you just came out of the woodworks with this test. It was $3,000. I had to fight my insurance, nail the tooth. Like, I want to make sure you're accurate. I want to make sure that this is right. And sure enough, I did a saliva and I sent it out, and they walked me through the process like a couple years ago, but it's totally different. Like, they call you over the phone. You now have a genetic counselor at your fingertips. You can call and they can explain things to you. I probably didn't utilize, I did not utilize it the way I should have, because I had already made my decisions.
Right.
So for
and
me,
you already knew so much at that point.
Right. For me, it was so different. But when the geneticist called me, I was like, the genetic counselor, I was like, wow, where were you? You know, like, more women need to know. And partnering with the Color has been amazing. I mean, so many women have gotten tested that I know personally. Like, I spoke at an event, I did a podcast, 5 women got tested already, you know, from a podcast. Like, it's obviously that's to take it, but it's at your fingertips, and you don't have to go through your insurance. You don't have to fight that battle. You go in, they mail you the kit right to your house.
Well,
so that's really good. You don't have to go wait anywhere. You get it mailed to your home, put the
Right.
saliva in, and send it back.
Correct. And
And
they
then and you get your results, and then the genetic counselor talks to you. They say, okay, and that's the way it will be in the future. It's not that way across the board, because there's an argument that everybody, regardless of ethnicity, should get BRCA testing. And it'll probably get to that point because it's so inexpensive and it's so impactful. But at least now we have options to get men and women who have a higher risk, that 1 in 40 of getting them tested, giving them an option to get an inexpensive test. When I first tried to start this in 2014 or so, the only kid on the block was Myriad, as Tracy said. They owned the patent up until 2013. So when they said, sure, we can test all Ashkenazi Jews, it'll be $500 a test, I said, I can't. How am I going to, I'll test 2 people. Nobody's going to want to get tested for $500 a test. I mean, some people will when they realize the importance of it, but it's not, it was cost prohibitive for the general population. So fortunately, I have some labs that said, yeah, I get it.
well, kudos to them. Kudos to you for really making that accessible, because that absolutely is like, you know, it's just one less excuse to put it off.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. I was going to say, there should maybe even be like screenings, because people can do it at home. They can do it at home. We just hosted in the Chabad the beginning of this week on Monday, a health organization Lifeline screening for aneurysms, for strokes. It's not covered by insurance. Also, people can come and see, and then once they see something on the test, then obviously insurance will cover more extensive testing.
Right.
But if this can be done at home, it's the same idea, then
yeah,
it should be easily accessible.
Right.
Fantastic. So someone that's watching could go onto your website, to yodea.org or to brackestrong.org, and links and where to get these tests, etc. Obviously, right?
Correct.
There is a column, how to get tested, what to know before you test, how to do the test, and what to expect after the test. All the information's there, videos are there, information, links.
And you both are helping a lot of people. So I want to ask you both the question, if either you have a story you want to share. Is there a particular person that you helped over the course of the years you've been doing this, a particularly special moment where you felt like, wow, it's all worth it just for this one woman or this man that I was able to help him and his family? And as a rabbi, you have that experience. I've had that experience many times. Like, it was all worth just this one experience. Okay, I saw Tracy shaking her head, so you can go first.
So we do a lot of transformational photo shoots, and what we do is basically have women come in like their pajamas, no makeup on, like just ready to come hang out and spend the day. And I had a 3-time breast cancer survivor and 1-time ovarian cancer survivor come in who just wasn't happy inside. And through conversations, we spoke, and she came in from out of state. We flew her in, and watching her glow through the transition, and now look back and say, like, Tracy, because of you, I accepted who I was and what you do for your organization. And when she's having bad days, she looks at her pictures. Wow. And giving these women that moment that they deserve. Because as I've walked in those shoes before, it crushes me to see other women do it. So for me to be able to give that woman that opportunity, as well as many others, we've done 2 transformational photo shoots this year. So 40 women alone were truly touched and impacted. And then we let butterflies go in their names. So basically like a blessing in their name, instead of just saying, sitting around and sobbing, just being together and being supportive, and let them know, your wings can fly, and let's just continue to fight the battle.
Wow.
That's beautiful.
That's incredible. And just to have a woman is so important to have that feeling of self-worth. It's not for anybody else, just for themselves to feel proud of how they look and proud of who they are. It's so valuable.
Yeah, beautiful. Okay, Dr. Kramer.
So there is a woman who was a patient of mine, and she came in a couple of years. This is when I was able to get the inexpensive testing, and I said, "Oh, you're of Ashkenazi Jewish descent." Probably, we're in 2000 now, so this is probably 2017 or so. She's a dentist, and I said, do you want? And she's from DC, and she allows me to tell the story. So, okay. I said, do you want to be tested? 1 in 40, and we went through all those things. And she said to me, I'd love to, but I've been waiting in your office, which is not an uncommon comment I hear. I apologize, but
you're doctor,
and things like that. The next year she comes in for routine things. She's fine, no family history of anything. I said, can we please do this? I may have been running on time the second time. Yeah. So she said to me, yes. I'll do it. And she turned out she carried a BRCA2 gene mutation. So we went and took out her tubes and ovaries, and she did fine. And it was done robotically, and robotically you just respond so much quicker. And it looked perfect. And we get a phone call. So when you have somebody who you're doing surgery on who carries a genetic mutation, there's a specific way you have to look at the tissue under the microscope. She had a very small area in her fallopian tube that was an early cancer that was not quite invading.
Wow.
And this is the only time you ever see it is in BRCA carriers, because you rarely get the opportunity to remove things before they've invaded. So it was considered a not quite a stage 1 fallopian tube cancer. She still needed another surgery. Unfortunately, she still needed chemo. Wow. But she considers it a blessing. Wow. Because life.
That story. Wow.
If you look at the website, her video is there. Color, the lab that gave us and I have no financial relationship with any lab. I'm very thankful that they give us good, inexpensive testing so I can do what I need to do. They did a video. We were their holiday card. They did the video, and Dana talks about that. She's an unbelievably wonderful, lovely person. So, yeah,
that's very beautiful.
That will
Saving one life is saving an entire world.
Exactly.
Right.
And if this conversation inspires one person to be tested, and we have, it's worth it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Talmud says, we just, last week's Torah reading, Adam was created in the world alone. He was created even before his wife Chava, before Eve. Someone wants to know, why was Adam created alone? The whole world was created for one person, because the whole world exists for one person.
Mm-hmm.
Save even one life, as if you saved an entire universe. Mm-hmm. So, God willing, in the merit of the wonderful work you're both doing, and in the merit of all the beautiful things, acts of kindness that everyone's been doing, we should not have the need to save any more lives. Mashiach should come. There should be no more illness, no more suffering, and all the lives that you're saving and all the lives that you're enriching and making more meaningful and beautiful should all be a good merit.
Yeah.
And you want to?
Yeah, just so, again, just repeat the website if anybody wants is yodea.org, right? And BRCA.org. So all those resources are available there. Any comments, final comments you want to leave anybody with for tonight, or we're done?
Any comments?
Make sure
Thank you.
I want to thank both of you. We're happy that we can provide a medium and a platform to share really what's very important for people to be aware of. And obviously, hopefully no one should need, but if someone needs, and perhaps everyone needs,
yes,
to get tested, to know what's, and to save a life, it's all worth it. So God bless you both. You should continue doing wonderful things.
Thank you.
And we look forward to seeing everyone for happy occasions.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Be
Thank
well.
you.